Well, hey now, welcome to Fitz's Electric Bar, Vinyl Tag 2025. So I'm jumping on this, and I'll put the link below to the gentleman that started it, whose name and channel has slipped my mind. So Vinyl Tag 2025, first question, and also below I'll put the questions that he proposed. So best purchase of 2024, but I'm going to choose Jessica Pratt, Here in the Pitch. This came out last year. And one of the reasons I love this, I do really love this record. It's just a gorgeous record with elements of, I don't know, like freak folk and maybe bossa nova, and just some really interesting, very subtle little rhythms and sounds, and nice understated production. Got the chance to see her this year in concert, and also an understated performance, but a really interesting artist. And one of the reasons why I loved getting this record this year is it also opened the door to other works that she's done. This one here, this is called On Your Own, Love Again. This I just think is also a great record. These two, the one from 2024 Here in the Pitch, and this one, and again, I love that cover, but is an outstanding record. And then this is, I believe, her first record, just self-titled, Jessica Pratt. So now have, I think, all four of her records, her discography, and really loving her music. So 50 years later, best album from 74. I will say that I'm not a big fan of best. One of the reasons why I don't tend to do ranking videos, because I don't, the whole idea of best, you know, it depends on the day, it depends on my mood, all that kind of stuff. There's 74 is just a killer year of some outstanding records. You know, you've got Van Morrison's Veed and Fleece, you've got the Stones' It's Only Rock and Roll, Neil Young's On the Beach, some of my favorites. But I'm going to choose Roxy Music. Hope this doesn't get me banned. This is Country Life. This was the album of Roxy Music that really got me into their music. And I went deep on the catalog and absolutely loved it. And I've said many times before, holds up really, really well, but it's also, I think, a great bridge between that sort of 70s glam and the punk aesthetic, and I guess Brian Eno being part of that as well. Not just punk, but avant-garde, and doing things a little bit different. Number 3, an album that defines a genre. I think you'd be hard-pressed to, or it'd be hard to argue with The Clash's first record. When I think about punk, there are so many albums that you could say defines a genre, but when I think about punk, I mostly think about things, especially in the UK, with real sort of race and class issues and dissatisfaction at the time when this first Clash record came out. So yeah, political, passionate, no guitar solos or very, very brief guitar solos, and an energy and a defiance that is just fantastic. The Clash definitely can be considered a defining record, define punk music. Best band from your home country. Well, I'm from Canada, and I do love the Tragically Hip, but it just seems too easy. And another band that's very popular here in Canada, not known that well out of Canada, would be Blue Rodeo. I could pick something sort of fairly esoteric, but I'm going to pick a band that I've loved over the years. Even had the good fortune of having them play our wedding many, many years ago, back in the early days. But it's the Sky Diggers, and yeah. Andy, Josh, and the boys. This is their first record. They haven't had like huge hits, but A Penny More and I Will Give You Everything. Some really outstanding music from Sky Diggers. Ironically, because they came out at a time when I was buying CDs, I don't have anything on vinyl. I'm gonna have to take care of that at some point. Sky Diggers, best band from my home country. Although I will say, I was going to pick Bruce Cockburn. I think, you know, he is in the realm of, you know, Bert Jansch, John Fahey, and, you know, the finger-picking styles, and some Tim Buckley. And I just think he's an absolute treasure from Canada. He's still alive, still putting out very good music, still really worth seeing live. Saw him about a year or two ago, hoping to see him again when he comes to Vancouver. But this is Dancing in the Dragon's Jaws. This may have been the album that really got me into Bruce Cockburn back in my high school days. Next one, an artist you miss dearly. I would have to say David Bowie. And this is the first real Bowie record I got into, which was David Live. You can see that's not fake ringware. That is real ringware. The album has been played absolutely to death. It's masking taped up to hold it all together. This was live in Philadelphia. And I think the reason I miss him is because he is an artist whose output was always fascinating, even if he had downturns maybe in the 90s when it wasn't quite as interesting. I mean, he went out with Black Star and the single Lazarus and that video, which was just so staggering when he knew he was going to pass away. And so I'd have to say David Bowie. I'd be very interested to know what David Bowie would be producing were he alive still today. Best live album in my collection, again, I kind of blanch at the idea of best, but I'd have to say one of them would certainly be Lou Reed's Rock and Roll Animal. It's a big Lou Reed fan, still am, and this live album with the Wagner brothers, that intro, long, beautiful guitar intro that goes straight into Sweet Jane, outstanding versions of Heroin, White Light, White Heat, Lady Day, and also an outstanding rock and roll record. Interestingly, a 74 release. Your partner just dumped you. What album are you putting on? I would say, so having just completed the Sad Bastard tag, I don't want to be painted with a brush that if I got dumped that I'd be sitting there playing I've just been dumped music, and all the Breakup albums. So I'm going to actually choose what I would consider to be very happy, very bouncy, but kind of undercurrent of anger. And that would be Buzzcocks. Another Music in a Different Kitchen. I do believe this was their first record. Can't even see the song titles on there, I don't think. But a couple that would really work well with coming to terms with somebody having dumped me would be Get On Our Own and I Don't Mind, the Buzzcocks. Next up, number 8, Best Sounding Drums on an Album. Lots out there, but I'll give you a couple that I really like. On an album, I'd have to say, the drumming here of, I believe it's Jim Gordon. Yeah, on Derek and the Dominoes in concert. The very first track, Got to Get Better. No, Why Does Love Got to Be So Sad? The drum intro on that is just so crisp, punchy, and rhythmically just so sound. It's astonishing. So I didn't know much about Jim Gordon or what else he had done. Apparently he was quite a big session musician, did a lot of things. But when I went into the Wikipedia page, there's about 4 lines describing him, and the last line is he's a convicted murderer, having murdered his mother, and died in prison in 2023. So I don't know any more than that, but I don't think you need to be a murderer to be a great drummer. But the drumming on this record, and especially that first song, just the way it kicks off, I get chills every time I hear it. One of my favorites. Another one of my favorite drummers of all time would be Topper Headon and the Clash. And there's a part in this song in particular. There's I Fought the Law, when they do the 6-gun part, and he does that 6-gun on the snare is really wonderful. But the part that I just love, the combination of lyrics and drums and the visual image that is conveyed with the drums and the music, is Gates of the West. And he goes, Little Richard's in the kitchen playing spoons and plates, telling the waitress he's great. Da-da-ba. Love that. Okay, on a roll. Favorite artist who's a member of 2 or more bands. So one of my favorite artists, and has become so in the last couple of years, 2 or 3 years, would be Gene Clark. Gene Clark had a great solo career, but everything started as a forming member of the Byrds. This is a whole bunch of their singles. He wrote Feel a Whole Lot Better, which I first heard by the Flamin' Groovies, and later, of course, learned that it was a Byrd song, Gene Clark. So as a member of the Byrds, but also as a member of a band, I guess a duo that put out 2 records, as far as I know, and that is Dillard and Clark. So Gene Clark is part of Dillard and Clark, and this is the Fantastic Expedition of Dillard and Clark. He is really a progenitor of the early country rock sound, of course, and the Byrds often being, identified as being part of that. I think Gene Clark was a big reason for that sound. This has got some classics on here, including Train Leaves Here This Morning. Highly recommend Gene Clark. Any of you like singer-songwriters, Gene Clark is something else. Okay, Beatles or Stones? Well, for me, it's always been the Stones. It's not a question of one being better than the other. I think a lot of it is just kind of what you're most drawn towards. I'm actually really tired of the whole Beatles thing. I know it's exciting for everybody in the Beatles box, and I think that that's great. But I just have no interest in going much deeper in the Beatles stuff. I will watch the documentaries. I really enjoy them. Get Back was really great, what Peter Jackson did. But yeah, for me, it's the Stones for sure. And this is an early live recording of theirs with Mick Taylor that I just love. This was a big one for me in high school. I'd bring my friends over and they'd be like, where did they? And I'd play this and they'd be like, I don't know this live version. This isn't Get Your Yeah-Yeahs Out or Rock and Roll Circus or, what is this, The Rolling Stones Bed Spring Symphony. This was a bootleg that later became Brussels Affair and was included. It was either on a DVD or if you could have gotten it or can get it as a addition to the Goat's Head Soup box set as well. But Brussels Affair, for my money, is the ultimate Rolling Stones live recording with Mick Taylor. Well, I think this is a 72 tour, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, if you found a bag of weed, what are you going to listen to? So if I were in Japan, my answer to that would be I would throw that bag of weed away and I would just go home. But I'm not in Japan, so my answer would be, well, first of all, I probably would just hand that bag over to a friend, but don't want to sound like I'm virtue signaling, but I would have to say David Crosby, if I could only remember my name. The production on this in Wally Hyder's studio outside San Francisco, members of the Grateful Dead, Neil Young. The mood in the studio. So David Crosby's girlfriend had died tragically in a car accident, literally during the recording of this or just before the recording. And there's a track on here as well, which he claims, that it was like there were spirits in the studio and that she was visiting, or at least that's my understanding. But this is a gorgeous record. Many talk about it, so I don't need to say much more. But if I could only remember my name, and somehow, if you're smoking that bag of weed, maybe you're having a hard time remembering your name. An album from the 80s you still listen to. I find this an interesting question because I think that the underlying premise, I guess, is that a lot of 80s stuff is hard to listen to. There's a lot of stuff that I love from the 80s. I believe the Ladder Talk stuff and Mark Hollis was in the 80s. Could have been very early 90s, but I think it was late 80s. Love Hats by Blue Nile. I've been listening to that nonstop since it got reissued. But the one I'm going to choose, just because I like to be able to introduce something that maybe some don't know, is The Sound. You can see this was a cutout from The Lion's Mouth. They're just reissuing, I think, the first three. Maybe there are only really 3 studio albums of The Sound. But the production's excellent, still holds up really, really well. There's an energy to this. Highly recommend it. Songs on here would be Winning and Sense of Purpose, the first 2 songs. Actually, Contact the Fact is great too. It's a really solid record. Kind of reminds me of Comsat Angels and some of those other bands of that era. So that is an album from the 80s I still listen to. Okay, Echo and the Bunny, Heaven Up Here, those kinds of records, also good. All right, number 13, an artist whose political stance has soured you. Chosen this title purposely, so Van Morrison. No guru, no method, no teacher. That sure ain't you, Van. But, it doesn't hurt my love of the music, and I don't want to belabor this because I tend to want to be a little more positive than focus on the negative. Okay, show a favorite record label. Well, Stiff for me, because Stiff introduced me to Elvis Costello, to The Damned, to Nick Lowe, to many, many other artists. I think Devo, I Can't Get No Satisfaction, was originally out on the Stiff label. If it ain't Stiff, it ain't worth a fuck. They also call it the world's most flexible label. This was a really nice live record. So this included many interesting guys. So Ian Jury, Reckless Eric, Elvis Costello, Nick Lowe, Larry Wallace. And some of those names you'll know and some you won't. Larry Wallace, I'm a Police Car. Great live version. Reckless Eric wrote I'd Go the Whole Wide World, which was on Stranger Than Fiction, I guess, the Will Ferrell movie. And I always loved Reckless Eric. Saw him at Dingwalls back in '81. And so this is Stiff's Live. Love the Stiff record label. Thank you, Jake. Okay, got a big pile of stuff. Run of 3 great singles. So this was the one that really gobbled up my time. I have a lot of singles, and I was looking through my Elvis Costello, my Jam, and I was always 2 of 3. I didn't have all of them. So because I love my singles, I'll show you some of my thwarted attempts and my final choice. So Elvis Costello, this is, I think, the second Stiff release by 2. So this is, Less Than Zero, his first single. Watching the Detectives and Allison were the number 2 and 3. I don't have those, although those are both on this Hollywood High that came with Armed Forces live versions. And Angels Want to Wear My Red Shoes was in there somewhere. And then there's no cover on this one. Import, Elvis Costello. It was on a rack and I bought it. But this one is actually one of my favorite Elvis Costello singles, and truly a great single, and not on an album initially. I think it ended up on, is it Taking or Talking Liberties? Taking Liberties. I Don't Want to Go to Chelsea. God, the beginning of that song and his angular guitar work is really great. And then a little bit later, Mystery Dance, another Stiff release. Other one that I wanted to do, I believe I don't remember what the order was, but I'm missing Going Underground, and it's the Jam. So that's Entertainment, which is one of the classics. This particular one also has a live version Down in the Tube Station at Midnight, which is great, and Start. But I couldn't find Going Underground. And so the one that I went with, and I still don't have everything, this is The Clash. And the first single of theirs was White Riot, 1977. What a killer first single. I mean, the B-side itself is, to me, as good as the A-side, but White Riot is a classic. Then they went into Remote Control, was the single. There's a mono live version of London Calling on this UK release. Next was Complete Control, which was the story of not wanting to release Remote Control. I don't know if they didn't want to release it on the record or they didn't want it as a single, but Complete Control is about their battle with Sony and putting Complete Control on the record. And in between those two, there's Clash City Rockers, which I used to have but can't seem to find. To me, one of the great singles is White Man and Hammersmith Palais, The Clash. So these aren't 3 consecutive. There is one in between there, Clash City Rockers, that I don't have. But what a great run of singles. White Riot, Remote Control, Complete Control, Clash City Rockers, and White Man and Hammersmith Ballet. Record store day purchase that you actually consistently listen to. So this, again, interesting underlying assumption, I guess, that it really intrigued me because I started thinking, I mean, my RSDs, I don't keep them separate and they're in my collection, but I started looking at a large collection of ones that I've purchased and have either listened to once or not listened to much. A television live one at the Academy, an Acetone live, Nonstop Erotic Cabaret by Soft Cell, kind of extended versions, 12-inch versions, things like that. But I will tell you another artist that I've been loving for a while and showing quite a bit, but this is Greg Fote and Gigi Mason, I'm not sure. Nice spot varnish there with a little bit of shadow. But one of the first Greg Fote records that I got into, which was Dolphin, and there are a couple different versions of those Dolphin tracks. And this is a really nice record, as almost all Greg Fote records are. So that's one that I do listen to quite a bit. You can be reincarnated as any artist, alive or dead. Who's it going to be? Well, it's going to be this man, looking a little shaky, pardon the pun. And that would be Neil Young. So this is American Stars and Bars. This is, I guess the first time I heard Like a Hurricane was off of Decade, and then I grabbed this record, which might have been, believe it or not, my first Neil Young record. I don't even think I had Harvest or Tonight's the Night or After the Gold Rush. But Like a Hurricane blew everything open for me when I heard his guitar playing. And I think the reason I would choose to be reincarnated as Neil Young is the journey that he's been on, the freedom and the artistic kind of openness to absolutely anything and playing all those different genres. I don't think Neil ever gets bored. He doesn't allow for it. He plays with some amazing artists. He's put out some amazing stuff. But to be able to be playing his guitar, Big Black, and just wailing away on the lead guitar in front of all those people, just going nuts and doing some of the classic Neil one-note guitar solos, that would be something I would very much sign up for. Number 18, best 3 lines in a song. Well, this artist, when you talk lyrics, you got to talk Neil Young or Bob Dylan. So, you know, my friend Brian over at Tokyo Record Style has this committed to memory, and I don't. But the lines in here, and I'm not going to choose these, but it's from the same song that I'm going to choose. Darkness at the break of noon, shadows, even the silver spoon, the handmade blade, the child's balloon, eclipses both the sun and moon. To understand, you know too soon, there is no sense in trying. So I have no idea what he's talking about. Absolutely none. And I almost really defy anybody. I don't think Bob Dylan has any idea what he's singing there. It's just beautifully syncopated and goes with the beat, and it's gorgeous sounding. But I will tell you that these 2 lines, I have a very strong understanding of what they mean, and that is that he not busy being born is busy dying. Love those lines. Just 2 of them. You don't need 3 with Bob. Well, there's 15 verses in Thanks Ma, I'm Only Bleeding off of this record, Bringing It All Back Home. Couldn't find the record, so I had to pull out the CD. Great lyrics, Bob. Okay, number 19, an album you never tire of. Well, I think push came to shove and I had to pick one record that I had to live with, and that's why I bought this UHQR is Bill Evans and the Bill Evans Trio with Scott LaFaro at Sunday at the Village Vanguard. This is just an exquisite record, steeped in tone. And when I put this on, every time I put this on, my wife doesn't always do this. I don't hear that when I put on the Pixies or even the Royal Cambodian Choir during Pat Metheny's Above Tree Tops. That's an obscure reference there for you. But she loves this one. She always loves it when it goes on. But this sets a mood and you feel like you're just plopped right in the middle of the Village Vanguard listening to this great trio. And so that's a record I never get tired of. Final question, share your favorite VC channels. So there are so many channels and I do make a point of mentioning them on my show and I don't want to leave anyone out right now. So I will just choose one and I'm going to say Mazzy. I know he gets a lot of love and maybe he doesn't need any more love, but his channel was really the first one that got me both into watching these VC videos and also inspiring me to do it. I like his eclecticism. I like his sense of humor. He doesn't take himself too seriously. And he does do a very good job of explaining what he likes about a record and the context of the release when appropriate. And I really enjoy his channel. So Norman Maslov, Mazzy loves you. And Carpe Diem, Fitz loves you as well. Thanks for the Vinyl Tag 2025 and looking forward to watching everyone else's. Bye-bye for now.